Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to the Bhagavad Gita course. We are starting this or a new batch today in the new year. Didn't want to start on 1st Jan because people are probably doing a lot of things on 1st Jan. So 8th is a good time to start. And so let's get started on this journey. Before we start, we recite a prayer. We'll start all classes with a small prayer. And these prayers are to the speaker of Bhagavad Gita. Who is the speaker of Bhagavad Gita? Krishna. So these prayers help us to receive the blessings of Lord Krishna so that we can understand Bhagavad Gita nicely, so that we can understand it, we can apply it in our lives. So I will share my screen for those of you who have a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. Many of you may be having a yellow colored copy. This is the same one. It's about 20 years old edition. There's no newer editions. It's the same thing, just cover changes. So it's in the introduction. I will share it here on the screen. So I hope all of you are seeing this screen on your computers. I'll share what website this is and everything I will share. But for now, we'll go to Bhagavad Gita. If you have a copy of the Bhagavad Gita with you, and I'm talking about this specific Bhagavad Gita, which is called Bhagavad Gita as it is. I will explain all these details in just a moment. We'll go to the introduction, and these are just some prayers. On the Zoom, you need not unmute. Please stay muted in the room. We will, for those who know the prayers, can recite along with me. I can see some familiar faces here. And if you do not, just listen to them. So, and the translation of all these prayers are given below. In some of the future classes or one of the future classes, we will go through the translation and understand the meaning as well. Just the Sanskrit pronunciation is itself very potent, and it will take like 1 minute to recite these prayers. We'll start all classes with these prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, wonderful. So we will get started now. I have prepared some slides. It will help to guide us through the entire flow. There are a lot of people here in the room as well. Please come forward, occupy the space if you would like. And there are a couple of chairs left. You know, if you have back problems or whatever, you can feel free to use the chairs. If you would like, move forward or whichever way, you know, use up all the space. we'll wait for a few seconds for people to settle down here in the room, and then we'll get started. All right. Okay. So 5:10 right now, Pacific time. All those who are joining on Zoom, this is the time that we will have for the entire course. If you are in different time zones, please calculate your time accordingly. If you are in a different country, then please realize that in the United States, we will switch the time sometime in March. So there might be a change by 1 hour in your country, especially like in India, where the daylight savings is not followed. So anyway, we'll announce all of that heavily. I hope you're all getting the emails. That is my wife there in the black dress. She may not be visible on the Zoom. I don't know if she has turned on her camera or not, but so, and she sends out, her name is Gunjan Tiwari. Her spiritual name given by her spiritual master is Damodar Lila Dasi. My name is Param Karuna Das, which has been given by my spiritual master. My name before I was given this new name is Purushottam Goel. I have been living in Portland for almost 20 years now. Moved from India in 2004, so about 19 and a half years. All of the time I have been working at Intel here. I'm a principal engineer there. I design computer chips and so on and so forth. My wife is also an engineer. We both graduated from the same college in India from IIT. We were classmates and we worked in Bangalore for a while. Before we moved here, I used to work there at Intel. They moved me. I'm very grateful to them for bringing us to this place. And my journey with spirituality started after we came to the United States, and that's true with many people because there is a saying in Hindi we call "Ghar ki murgi dal barabar," means that when you're close to something, you don't see the value. When we got disconnected from our roots, then we thought, hey, we shouldn't get disconnected from our roots, and we looked out for connecting back. Many people go to the East, sort of this phenomenon of Eastern mysticism, and to search for the truth or the spiritual mysticism, etc. But many of the people who are born in India, come to, it's like, my wife is from Agra, the famous city where Taj Mahal is there. You must have all heard about that. And after we got married, I told her, hey, let's go visit the Taj. I was visiting her hometown, and we gathered all her relatives, and they all said, we haven't been to the Taj Mahal for 15 years, even though they were living there. So that's what happens when you leave the place, then you feel the importance or the need of that. So anyway, we have two sons. They're both in college. So my mother lives with me. She's pretty old. She's upstairs. So that's a little bit about ourselves. We have about, 98 people on Zoom right now. And about, a lot of people, maybe 50 or so here in the room. So it's not possible to do everybody's introduction, but I will get to know you. You will get to know both of us, me and my wife, over a period of time. So we will, get to know each other, and hopefully we will stay together for a very long time. So welcome to this 5-month journey. This is going to be a very fast-paced course on Bhagavad Gita. There is another parallel batch that is running right now, which we do on Fridays from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time. We are on the 15th chapter out of a total of 18 chapters in the Bhagavad Gita. That's been going on for almost a year and a half. So by the time we complete all the 18 chapters, it might be a little bit less than 2 years. I call that as the double XL batch, like the t-shirt size, small, medium, large, XL and double XL. So this one I'm thinking is somewhere like a small or medium size. So we'll go through it fast. Everything that we are doing is on, the recordings are posted on YouTube. I will share all of that. So if ever you're interested for something more deeper, longer, you can go back and refer to, there is one very, very nice friend of ours and a very good devotee, Lila Mataji, who's kind of documenting sort of in the previous, the double XL size, sort of the one every like chapters within videos. So easy to navigate. So if at any point you're interested in going into deeper aspects of something that we have discussed, you can always look back at the previous ones, or you can ask questions. This class is tailored to have a lot of Q&A. So questions are highly encouraged. It's not I don't intend it to be a monologue or a lecture. Heavy Q&A is encouraged. Anyway, so I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself. Let me go kind of follow the slides that I have shared. So we welcomed everyone. Continue coming here in person. Those who may be on Zoom and are still in the Portland area, please come over if possible. We are in the Bethany area in Portland. There is absolutely, we went through 3 years of COVID. We did a lot of batches. That's how all this Zoom, and I didn't know what Zoom was before COVID. It was like a new platform. Before that, I don't know, there was Skype probably. That's all we all knew about. And so Zoom has given us a lot of access. So now everything is hybrid now. Nobody wants to, not offer the benefits to those who are remote. But at the same time, there is no substitute for in-person. So the amount of attention, the amount of absorption, the connection that you get with the teacher, between the teacher and student and a class, and the whole topic, the whole environment, the ambience, there is no substitute for that. So if you're in the Portland area, if you can make it here, please continue to come in person. Otherwise, Zoom is the absolute next best option. And in that, turn on your videos if possible. 2 things will happen there. One thing is it will prevent you from doing something else, cooking or, running on the treadmill or something. Treat it like as if you are in the room with attention. And it helps me also to, on my screen, I can tell you on my side, I have sort of a window where I can see all the people. So it gives me a feeling of interactivity as well. I'll share about some logistics, housekeeping, etc. Before that, so I'll leave this, all this material will be on YouTube. So including the slides sharing. So, anything that's been shown on the slides, you can make a note of it. That first link is our website. It's just a modest website on a free hosting platform, gitapdx.com. Gita for Bhagavad Gita, PDX is Portland, as you can understand. It's the airport code for Portland, PDX. Since we live in Portland, that was what we used. So any info, useful stuff we will post there, and I will talk about it as we go along. The second part is vedabase.io. So that's this website where we were reading those prayers in the beginning. Everything. So let me show you this website. This is vedabase.io. So if you just type vedabase.io, or even if you type vedabase.com, it will redirect here. So vedabase.io, and this is basically the full library of all the spiritual books. And the first one, so don't worry, there are many books here. Don't worry about anything else right now. Just the first one is the Bhagavad Gita, and this is the Bhagavad Gita we will follow. And so I clicked on Bhagavad Gita, then I'll click on introduction, and that's where those prayers were. So this is the website, the entire Bhagavad Gita, whatever many of you are holding in your hands, the paper copy, the contents, all of it, 100% is in the website, freely available to the entire world. Of course, if you want a paper copy, there's a cost to it. This is $15, the hardbound paper copy version, for obvious reasons, printing, shipping, and all that stuff. But the content is all freely available, and that's what we will follow. I'll explain a little bit more about this particular edition of the Bhagavad Gita. As you can see, there are, or as you may realize, there are so many editions of Bhagavad Gita. I can see some in some people's hands right now. So that's one website. The other website I already talked about, gitapdx.com. And here's the YouTube channel. Like I told you, my spiritual name is Param Karuna Das, P-A-R-A-M-A-K-A-R-U-N-A-D-A-S. So if you search by that, let me show you that search. I will, how it might look to you. So I will start a sort of in a new sort of incognito window so that it's clean of any sort of caches or anything. Here. So this is a fresh Chrome window. You go to youtube.com, and in the search bar, you type my name, P-A-R-A-M-A-K-A-R-U-N-A. You can see here, as you start typing the second link, Parama Karuna Das, this will come up. And you will see this little flower symbol. That's the YouTube channel where there are a lot of videos and stuff. So here is where we will create a new playlist for the 2023 batch of Bhagavad Gita. All the videos will be posted here. If you go to the playlist, there's the 2021 ongoing batch. And there is another one, 2020 batch, which is complete from chapter 1 to chapter 18. I call that as the L size, large size. So this one is going to be like a medium or small, somewhere in that range. The ongoing one, so as you can see, there are 46 videos total in the 2020 batch, which is the entire Bhagavad Gita. This is 64 videos in the 2021 one, and we're still not complete. It'll go up to maybe about 75 classes. This one, we will keep it to about 20 classes. There are 18 chapters, about one chapter a week. So about 20, 21 classes. We may take some breaks in, sometimes spring break or this or that, we may take some breaks, but overall number of classes will be about 20. So that's how you can navigate to the channel. If possible, or if you want to stay connected, I don't want to sound like a YouTube marketing person, but subscribe to it so that you can get, even if you get disconnected, it'll pop up sometime in your feed. You might want to get connected back to Bhagavad Gita. So that's the information. Couple of very quick logistics and housekeeping things for people in the room and on Zoom. Silence your phone, be punctual. We will open the Zoom about 5 minutes before. We will open the doors about 10 minutes before 5 o'clock. Please come, settle down so that we can start right at 5 o'clock. Bring your book. Question and answers. Like I said, so this is a very, very important part. Q&A etiquette. Raise your hand in the room. Don't just shout out. Raise your hand. Or in Zoom, you can also raise your hand. For those on Zoom, you can do that. Or put your questions in the Zoom chat if you're on Zoom. Or send your questions ahead of time. That's the best way to elicit very nice, deeply thought out answers. Because if I get your question before, I will think about all the points and I will, give a very, a complete response. You can go to our website. That's where one of the things our website is useful, gitapdx.com. There's a contact link there, contact us, or you can just go to gitapdx.com/contact, put in your question there ahead of time if you want to. You're more than welcome to ask in the class as well. Now, it's been about 25 minutes, and as you can already realize, this is not just a shloka recitation class. This is more like a university course. The focus is on understanding Bhagavad Gita, and more than understanding. So one is called Gita, we'll read Bhagavad Gita. So there is one concept, reading. Okay, so it goes in here and comes out where? The other ear. Or, it doesn't, understand means what? It goes here. There's a third level. What is the third level?
Practice. Using it in real life situations.
Applying it. Absolutely. Application. So not only it goes here, but it shows up in our actions, in our words, okay, in our thoughts. Okay, so we call this BMW. It shows up in our body, mind, and words. Those are the three things. That is the field. You will see this later in Bhagavad Gita. The field of action is in these three. It's not just an action. You don't have to punch someone to hurt them. It is said that words sometimes hurt more than punches. And also in the mind also, then you're hurting yourself. That's why people say, oh, don't keep it in your heart. Just blurt it out. That's not, we will talk about all of these topics, not to keep simmering in the heart, saying it out. Okay, you say it out. What's it all about? All the negativity that may be there in our heart and all that. So we will talk about all those things. So reading, understanding, and most importantly, applying. And for applying, Q&A is the most important. I can talk for hours and hours and hours. I love talking about Bhagavad Gita. I've been teaching Bhagavad Gita for about 15 years now. And I just love to talk about it. But if you're facing a problem, you're all grown-up adults, many of you have certain understanding already in your mind. You may have questions like, but what about this? But I faced this situation, or I've heard this. What about that? What about that? How does it connect here? So I wouldn't know what are your situations. Where are you stuck? So whatever I am saying, you need to connect it to where you are in your understanding about other things, whatever you have accumulated over the 30, 40, 50 years in your life. And all of that need to come together for you to sincerely apply it. Otherwise, this will be yet another thing that you did and forgotten it. Bhagavad Gita is way too precious to let that happen, that it becomes yet another thing that you did, self-help or motivational. It's none of that. It is intended to be life-altering. It is intended to be life-changing. Okay, and that's why it's been there for thousands and thousands of years, and it is what it is. I don't need to explain to you the brand power of Bhagavad Gita. Please try to come for all the classes for maximum benefit, even if it feels like you are not understanding or you fell behind, or people are at all places. A very good example is that of a bag of popcorn, which you put in the microwave. They all don't pop at the same time. There is some gestation period, and then you see, but it starts off small. Some early pops will happen, and then they'll all start popping. And after some time, when you think it's all done, you'll hear one pop, right? So we are all going to pop at some time or the other. And every piece of corn is different. So the idea is to stay in the microwave, to stay in the conversation. Okay, if you take out the bag of popcorn, then the ones that haven't popped won't pop. Children below 6, so this is not a kids class. I mean, we are all children. Spiritually, we are all very immature. So it is for children, but it's not, when I say it's not for children, it's not just a children's class. Okay, people are very anxious to make their children learn Bhagavad Gita. The best way to teach your child Bhagavad Gita is for you to learn it yourself. And then when the children ask questions and all that, you can answer them at home. You can have meaningful conversations. So parents' involvement is extremely important, and we want to stress on that. Good, mature children. We have this girl here. She's been, reading Bhagavad Gita, and she's doing a much advanced level of the Bhagavad Gita course, which has tests and homeworks, and we do a whole, and you get a official degree we're from ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and it gives a worldwide degree called Bhakti Shastri, where it's officially recognized all over the world. It's issued, the certificate is issued by the headquarters, and so on and so forth. And it's a rigorous course, and she's doing it. So the point is that children can understand, but with the help of parents. On Zoom, keep yourself muted. It'll create while you're not talking, but and unmute, of course, when you have to say something or to ask a question or whatever, and attend as if you are in person, not while cooking or walking or doing other things. Turn your video on and put your full name there, not like 108 or iPhone or something like that. And there might be some inconveniences. Please tolerate. Okay, sitting on the floor might be inconvenient. The idea is to learn Bhagavad Gita. This is a wonderful opportunity to learn Bhagavad Gita. Don't let go of it. Okay.
We have more chairs. Does anybody need more chairs? I kept them in the other room. We can easily take them out. So please let us know.
If you absolutely need a chair, raise your hand. We'll get you one.
Empty chairs, and we have many more chairs. So
okay.
Please keep that in mind.
All right. So what is the Bhagavad Gita? It is a manual. It's a manual for, who wants to say? Anybody on Zoom? We are very quiet on Zoom. Yes, go ahead, Skanda.
All human beings.
How to live our life?
It's a manual on how to live.
All right, very good.
It's a manual for connecting with the divine in us and outside.
All right.
It answers your unanswered questions.
Very nice. To answer unanswered questions. All are right answers. Very good. So our body is a machine. In the 18th chapter, 61st verse, Lord Krishna will talk about it. But anyway, it's a very complex machine. And for any complex machine, you need a manual. So it is a manual, many of you said, for life, for how to live. I say it is the manual for the human body. And the body includes the mind as well. And I'm not even coming to the point of the soul. We'll very soon come to that. But it is a manual for the human beings. And it's a very complicated machine. And many people think that Bhagavad Gita should be read when we are old. For any complex machine, like you bought a Tesla car. It's one of the most complicated cars. One of our neighbors has it, and he keeps telling me after 6 months of buying it, he's still reading the manuals to discover all the undiscovered things that he can play. It's like a toy. And, this feature you can turn on, and that feature and that feature. Even for my, simple little Honda, they sent me that a manual which they had to break it down into 5 parts because the binding wouldn't hold all of them together. It's so thick. So for such man-made simple machines, you need such manuals. For human life, for human beings, you do need a manual. There should be a manual. And the manual should be read before you use the machine, not when it's time to discard it, isn't it? What's the point? And then if you start reading the manual, you'll see, oh my God, had I known this before, how much better I could have used this machine. So that's what Bhagavad Gita is. All, and I'll show you just in a little bit, all of life's most important questions, all of them. I've been teaching this course for a few years, like I've said. So many people have come up to me and asked various situations, very personal situations they've shared with me and things like that. Every single question, without exception, I can put my hand on my heart and say this. Every single question is answerable through the eyes of the Bhagavad Gita. 1 verse, 2 verse, some verse somewhere. Yes, one needs to have mastery or sufficient knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, upside down, sideways, all that. But yes, Bhagavad Gita can answer all of questions. And if you don't trust me, look at what Mahatma Gandhi says. If you turn, for those of you who have, now this is not in the online Bhagavad Gita Veda base. So if you look, turn around, and at the back cover, there's a quote by Mahatma Gandhi. I just want to read the quote by Mahatma Gandhi about what he says about Bhagavad Gita. So here's what he says, and you can turn to the back cover. Most of the Bhagavad Gita as it is editions should have this. It's very, after like 20 years since I started reading this, it's still just, I get goosebumps when I read this quote. So Mahatma Gandhi says about Bhagavad Gita, when doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare me in the face, and I see not one ray of hope on the horizon, I turn to the Bhagavad Gita and find a verse to comfort me. And I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. Those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh joy and new meanings from it every day. So this is Mahatma Gandhi saying this. And arguably, he has gone through some challenges in his life. He took on some big problems in his life. A person, it is said, is defined by, the greatness of a person is defined by what?
The company he keeps.
All right. The greatness of a person, yes? Sorry?
By his thoughts and deeds.
Thoughts and deeds and actions I'm seeing on the Zoom. So one great philosopher said, the greatness of a person is defined by the greatness of the problems he has taken on to solve. And Mahatma Gandhi arguably took a reasonably big problem to solve. Not just Indian independence, he changed the whole world politics from an imperial system to a more self-governed system. His whole thought process was about, Panchayat Raj and, self-governance. That was the fundamental model, which led to this whole thing about, independence and ending of imperialism. And the British Empire was the biggest empire. And that basically, So, and Bhagavad Gita is meant for all of humanity. I said, it's for human beings. It's a manual. There's no Hindu human being or a Muslim human being or a Christian human being. A human being is a human being. So if it's not religious. One can benefit from the Bhagavad Gita, even if you have absolutely nothing to do with the Hindu religion. Absolutely nothing. You will still get the same kind of benefit from the Bhagavad Gita. So we will uncover or unfold all of that during the course. So what will you get from the Bhagavad Gita? So many people, many, have you heard this quote? I've put it in deliberately in the Devanagari script. What is it? This is the most famous verse. And when many people, I talk to them, I've read Bhagavad Gita, they say, yeah, I know it. Okay, what is it about? What's the main message? Do your duty. Doing my duty. Yes, that is absolutely a part of Bhagavad Gita, and it's a big part of Bhagavad Gita, but it is not the biggest part. It's hardly the biggest part. So many people get stuck at this karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So it's a lot more than just that. There are so many things in Bhagavad Gita, so many questions. What about free will? Does God control everything? If God controls everything, then okay. There are so many, some criminals also say, oh, God made me kill. Why are you, or even little as small actions. If God is making everything happen, then what's the point of anything? We are just Star Wars, we are just droids, or we're just working under some superior intelligence, and we have no power. So, does God even exist? Who is God? So those are some of the questions about God. We talked about free will. A very important question: what's the purpose of my life? And this question haunts or strikes many people, especially those who have come close to seeing death. I was one such person when my father died 20 years ago. That's when I kind of, he was a very spiritual kind of person and kept telling me to, I listened to his advice on, but when he passed away, I realized it somehow hit me at that moment that life has an ending. And my life will also end one day. We all live as if that day is meant for others, but not for us. So the thing is, how can I live my life between now? I was 27 at that when my father passed away. Now I'm 48. So about 20 years ago. At 27, I would arguably have a reasonable amount of life ahead of me. How can I use the life between that time till I am about to die? So that when I'm old, or not even about to die, when I cannot rewind the clock, I can feel completely satisfied that this is, if given a second chance, this is exactly how I would want to live it. That I've thought was would be a very satisfying feeling to have at that stage of life. And I can tell you, going on this journey, understanding Bhagavad Gita and sharing it with everyone, as many people as possible, many times I ask myself the question, would I want to do something different with my time, this is Sunday, we do a class, like I said, on Friday, we do another one on Saturday, on Sunday, our Wednesday also we do something, Thursday, outside of work, and now kids are in college and everything. This is what fills both of me and my wife's life. And we talk about it, and we would not want to do anything different. There is so much joy and satisfaction and completeness that we have received from Bhagavad Gita, and we just want to passionately share it with everyone. And hopefully all of you get the same result. The journey is absolutely beautiful and wonderful. Otherwise, I could be watching a game or, doing something else with my time here. Friday, all our weekends are completely in this activity. I mean, that's just proof that we love to do this. So there are so many questions that get answered through the Bhagavad Gita. Long list. I'm not going to go through this. You can just scan this visually. And it's just whatever came to my mind. Some of the topics are related to God or a superior power. Because when things happen in our life, we question, why is it happening? Why me? And we always try to find answers. Is there anybody we can look up to answer, why is this happening to me? Can you make it better? And that concept or that person is God. We'll just give a name, God. So whatever you want to call it, God is an English word. We call Bhagavan, we may call Krishna, we may call Jesus, we may call whoever. So that is a big part of our life, but it's not just about God going to the temple, offering some worship and coming back. It's about what is our relationship with that higher or superior authority. And many other things. I have this another slide here, and many, many more. I don't want to go through each of these individually. All right. So now I want to talk about the specific edition of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, there are many people who have various editions. And if you go on Amazon.com and you look Bhagavad Gita, you'll get like 30, 40, even, I don't know, even 100 different editions. I have read about 8 or 10 of them myself. The Sanskrit shlokas, the Sanskrit verses are all exactly the same. They are identical. I don't know. There may be one out there. So it's not a legal statement I'm making. Okay. But the Sanskrit verses are all the same, including this one, the Bhagavad Gita as it is. The whole difference is in the translations and the commentary. And there is always, even in simple things, when a father says something, I have 2 kids, and there's an advantage to having 2 kids. You get the contrast. We have a thing in our house, Papa said. So I obviously said one thing, but what Papa said for one is very different from what Papa said for the other. And they'll fight about, no, Papa said this. No, he said this. So, it's about the interpretation. Now, I'll go to this next slide. So the author of the translations, now the Sanskrit was spoken by Krishna. So he's the author. But the English translations and the commentary have been given by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He's the founder of ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also popularly known as the Hare Krishnas and all that. And he is coming from a long line of disciplic succession. This whole concept of teacher and student. And not just a teacher and student. That's why I have put that question there. Why teacher and student?
Because Krishna was the teacher and Arjuna was the student.
Yes, that's true. But the point is, the teacher has to be perfect and the student has to be perfect. Now, we do not have Krishna here standing. I am not Krishna, obviously. Neither was A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, who wrote the translations. But he is in, as is shown in this picture, hopefully you can see, in this line of perfect teachers and perfect or very, 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 very perfect, smart, intelligent, faithful students who then become qualified to be teachers. And that is known as, in Sanskrit, Parampara or a Sampradaya, or what is known as a disciplic succession. So if you open your Bhagavad Gitas, Now you get to open all of your Bhagavad Gitas and you go to the introduction, the last page of the introduction. So I will share it on the screen here. So we will go back to I'll tell you just in a second. So go to the Bhagavad Gita on Veda base, like I showed, and go to the introduction and go all the way to the end. So somebody is asking here in the room what page. Now, as you can see, the Bhagavad Gita, even this one comes in various sizes. So the page numbers are not consistent because different font size and all that could shrink or expand the page numbers. So just go to the intro.
34, the
Yeah, 34. She's saying it might be 1 or 2 plus minus even, depending on. And there you will see a long list from 1 to 32. And this is the recorded sort of lineage which starts at Krishna. Now Krishna, now the second name is not Arjuna. Second name is Brahma. Lord Brahma, you might have heard about him. So Lord Krishna did not just speak Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. He also spoke it to many others. Like a professor may have multiple good students. And each one can have their own branches below it. Now Arjuna was a student who did not have further, he did not become a guru. So he did not have further students below him. So that branch did not propagate further down, but this branch propagated further down. And it's still coming from the same original teacher, Krishna, all the way to Bhaktivedanta Swami. And the point is that, so I'll go back. So as you can see here, starting from Krishna all the way to Bhaktivedanta Swami, Bhagavad Gita as it is means that as the author intended the meaning to be understood. If the author wants to say something and the student who is maybe, not so intelligent or maybe scrupulous could twist and turn the meaning. And then after a series of, such jumps, the meaning or the translation or the understanding could be very different from the original author intention. So the question is, would you like to know what Krishna intended the meaning of the Bhagavad Gita to be? If the answer is yes, then this Bhagavad Gita is the authentic version, because it is coming down through this bona fide disciplic succession. That's point number one. Now I can tell you, now you're sitting in my class here, and I can tell you that I have read a few Bhagavad Gitas, and I happen to know Sanskrit as well. So I can read the Sanskrit. Now I told you all of them, the Sanskrit is the same. And it's not hard. The Sanskrit is easy in the Bhagavad Gita. If a teacher is trying to teach the student, why would he teach it in a complicated way? He will try to simplify as much as possible and then teach. So the Sanskrit, if it makes sense, it just makes perfect sense. And I have seen some versions of Bhagavad Gita where the meaning is like, I'm like, what? How did that interpretation come about? So we will unfold all of that as we go along. But the point is that this Bhagavad Gita, and that's why the author Bhaktivedanta Swami added this as it is, just to emphasize that what you will get from this edition is what Krishna originally intended. Many people don't know Sanskrit. So how do you make out what is meant? In the just as an example, I will tell you, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, in just before one verse, he says, Arjuna, this is the most important verse of the whole Bhagavad Gita. He says that. Krishna says that. Shrinu me paramam vachaha. Please hear my param vachan, my words. And then there are 2 verses, which are called as the foundational verses of Bhagavad Gita. Okay. I was listening to some classes and some things, 50 most important verses of Bhagavad Gita. All right. 50 most important. These 2 weren't even in that list. I'm like, what? I mean, like, yes, your interpretation, your priority, your interpretation, my interpretation could be different. What you think is important versus what I think is, but it's not about what you think, what I think. It's about what the author wants to say. So if you would like Lord Krishna's one, and there was a research done, academic research done, and somebody read a lot of versions. I forget the name of the Bhagavad, and he wrote a PhD thesis. And he said this Bhagavad Gita comes closest to the author's intention. Anyway, so that's why the as it is. But it's the same Bhagavad Gita that is, and in fact, it's the most authentic one. So we talked about all these topics. Now, very quickly, Bhagavad Gita has 700 verses total. Now you can, Bhagavad Gita is just absolutely a profound book. The way I would like to explain is that every verse in the Bhagavad Gita has 4 parts. Each part, I call it a quartlet. In Sanskrit, it is known as pada, and is comprised of about 2, 3, or 4 words, depending on the length of the word. Lord Krishna has so expertly conveyed comprehensively yet concisely the entire knowledge that you can use to live your life in these 700 verses. Every word has a unique meaning. Now, we will not go into that. Will be like a XXX, 5XXXL version. And even I'm unfolding it. Mahatma Gandhi himself says that those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh joy and new meanings from it every day. It's so deep. It's bottomless. Okay. So Bhagavad Gita is, if you just take 700 verses times 4 quartlets in each verse, that's 2800. Multiply that by, let's say, 2 or 3 or 4. Let's say take average 3. That's about 8,000 plus potential concepts that can be present in the Bhagavad Gita. Potentially, if each word conveys a specific concept. We will not go into that depth, but that is what is available. And that's why it's a lifelong study. And to be honest with you, the reason I teach all these classes, more than teaching all these classes, I just enjoy going through it again and again. I was just telling today someone, that person came up to me, can I ask you a few questions? I said, today I have a class and I'm like, panicking, or I'm like absorbed in like, I need to get it. Again, even though I have taught this so many times, I just still feel I haven't gotten it. So, it's just so deep. So I won't go into all the details. There are smaller chapters, there are bigger chapters. We will try to convey the meaning or the key essence points, the key concepts of each chapter in each class. Okay, that's what we intend to do. That's why it's a small S-size batch. Even in the XXL, like I said, we may not be able to cover all the concepts, but there are more. And hopefully, this process, this journey will continue till end of my life. I hope I never give it up. Now, I want to explain a few things. So if you open your Bhagavad Gita and go to so let me just go to chapter 6, verse number 37. So navigating the Bhagavad Gita, the blue bubble at the bottom. I want you to, one of the things that you should be able to do is in your Bhagavad Gita, we'll refer to a lot of verses. And sometimes we will do something called verse hopping. So I'm just asking you to hop to verse number 6.37. That's how we will say 6.37. So 6th chapter, 37th verse. Are you all on that? We will not talk about page numbers. Never, ever. Page numbers are irrelevant. And that's why in this Bhagavad Gita at the top, like in a dictionary, now these days, I don't know if anybody uses a dictionary. You just go on Google and the dictionary is there. But in the old days, when there used to be dictionaries, at the top, there used to be the words that are at the starting of the page and at the ending of the page. So just by looking at the seam of the book, you can find out whether I need to go to the next page to flip forward or not. Similarly, the verse numbers are given here at the next to the seam. There you can, quickly kind of, for those who are computer science people, you can do a binary search or whatever. You can quickly come to the right page of 6. So everybody's at 6.37. Okay. So the second line or that particular verse, the last line is Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati. Do you see that? Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati. The last line of that verse. Krishna, the word Krishna, how is it spelled? Now, all those who have some background, typically the people born in India, or how would you pronounce Krishna? Krishna. Anybody on Zoom wants to try to pronounce Krishna?
Krishna.
Krishna. Okay, very nice.
Krishna.
Very nice. Thank you. But the way it is spelled here, what is the spelling here in English?
Krishna. K-R-S-N-A.
K-R-S-N-A. So when I kind of came into contact of ISKCON and this version about 25 years ago, I was wondering, why do these guys write K-R-S-N-A? What's going on here? I mean, is it some special, is it a different Krishna from the Krishna that we have been brought up with, the one with the flute and, blue color with a feather, a peacock feather? Is it a different Krishna, or why is it spelt differently? So the answer is this. This is a Wikipedia page, IAST. So it's not K-R-S-N-A. It's hardly that. There are 3 dots below the R, S, and N. And there is a certain lipi or a alphabet that you need to use to actually be able to pronounce certain words. There are certain sounds that are not present in the Roman alphabet that correspond to those sounds in the Sanskrit language. So Krishna means the tip of the tongue has to touch the top of your sort of mouth. That's how one of the things. So that N comes with a little dot at the bottom. So there's a pronunciation that is happening here. Many people write emails these days within our, friends and devotees community. They just write K-R-S-N-A. I feel they're kind of, if they're writing it to people who don't know what's being done, they're doing a disservice. You should better to write it at K-R-I-S-H-N-A. That's kind of the closest that it comes. The absolute closest is this: K, R with a dot, S with a dot, N with a dot, A, according to the definition of the alphabet. So at the back of the paper copy, now because IAST is available on the Wikipedia and all that, but on the paper copy at the back, you have something known as a Sanskrit pronunciation guide. And you should look at that, and you will see here that an S with a dot in the bottom, or let's just take the na. N with the dot at the bottom. So if you see there, the end with the dot at the bottom here, I don't know how to point it, but that in the Sanskrit alphabets is written as Rana. What? Okay. My son was taking a flight and he left for the airport and it's cancelled. So she needs to do something. Okay, anyway, we will keep going. Okay, so anyway, so that is why IAST is important. And by looking at, so you pick any verse. Everything good? So you pick any verse, we'll just stick to 6.37 in this edition of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. You will see the verse in the Devanagari script. I hope you all understand the Devanagari script, what it means. Then you will see what is known as the transliteration, which is basically the Sanskrit, but in the IAST format. And after you've, read through IAST format enough, you can just read the Sanskrit directly from the IAST format as well. Or if you know the Devanagari, you can read from that as well. There are many people who can't read the Devanagari, but they become very expert reciters of the Sanskrit because of this transliteration. Even many people of Indian origin, maybe South India or something, who didn't get an opportunity to understand or read or become expert in the Devanagari script, which is exactly the same as Hindi also, by the way, but they can easily benefit from this transliteration. Then there is a word-by-word translation given for every word in every verse. Every word has a translation. So if you want to look what a specific word means, you can look at that. Then there's a full translation which puts the whole verse into a legible sort of English sentence. If you just try to read the word by word, the English, and put it together, it won't make grammatical sense. Like in this one, if I read it, the last line, Kam Gatim Krishna Gachati, which destination, O Krishna, achieves? Kind of makes sense, but not quite. So the translation makes it make full sense. And then there is a commentary of how to understand the details of that verse. So that is sort of the detailed study for those who are interested in the detailed study. I tell people that if you're brand new to reading Bhagavad Gita, just read the translations as your first introduction to Bhagavad Gita, instead of again, for all the computer scientists, not depth first, breadth first. I hope you understood that. But basically try to get a broad understanding first, instead of taking one verse and trying to go very deep. Then some people, I was like that, would get lost. What's going on? What's the overall big picture? So 30,000 foot level. Just read the translation. And that's why in this edition, always the translations you will find in bold font. So if you open it and you'll see, so just read the bold things and your pages will fly like this. It may look like a thick book, but on every page, there's hardly like 1 or 2 translations. So your pages will fly like easily. Today, our goal is to read chapter 1 as well. So you'll see how quickly we will go through chapter 1. Okay. Now, this is the most important part of the thing, how to derive maximum benefit from the Bhagavad Gita, from this course. What's the mood and the consciousness that you should come with to understand or to try to understand the Bhagavad Gita? So we will start with a fundamental axiom. Now, what is an axiom? Anybody wants to say? You can raise your hand in the Zoom and speak and unmute yourself. What is an axiom? No one?
Assumptions.
Assumptions. Okay, it's close. I will qualify that a little bit.
The truth you need to accept.
Postulates before become to the principles.
Say that again.
Postulates before become to the principle in math. Axiom, just after the theorems, there will be axiom.
After, no, not after the theorems, before the theorems.
Before the theorems, I said before the theorems.
The
sorry.
proposition.
Suppositions, postulates. Yes,
No,
Shyam,
the postulates.
have your
Postulates before the principle.
Fundamental truths.
fundamental
truth.
truths. Okay. And you can lower your hand after you've spoken, so I know that unless you have.
The statements that are considered true without proof. So there's no proof for that.
Yes, statements that do not have a proof. Very nice. So all these are, you get an idea. All these were kind of, you can put together. These are the fundamental truths. They are not assumptions. Somebody said assumption means I will just assume it. It may or may not be true. The point is the axiom, you have to assume that it is true. For example, in geometry, this word axiom comes from, at least I was introduced to it through geometry. There is a fundamental axiom of geometry that two parallel lines never meet. There is absolutely no proof for it. It seems obvious, but mathematically there is absolutely no proof. Okay, to just give you again, in analysis, if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. It's obvious, but even that has a 16-page proof. This is what mathematicians do. If you take an intro to analysis class, this is one of the first things they will make you do. My head hurts when. So, but there are some more fundamental axioms than that. 4 more fundamental proofs or statements, like, for example, two parallel lines. So the fundamental axiom in Bhagavad Gita that we will now, why I'm saying this is because you can say, how do I trust Bhagavad Gita? How do I know that what is being said is the truth? Why should I accept it? My answer to that is, then you are in the wrong class. The fundamental axiom of the class is we will go by the Bhagavad Gita. This is a Bhagavad Gita class. I am going to tell you what the Bhagavad Gita is saying. If you have a question that I don't agree with if you ask me, please explain this, I will explain happily. If you ask me, this verse says this, but this verse says this, they both contradict or appear to contradict, I will happily answer that. But if you say, I don't agree, then I cannot do anything about it. All right. And the more fundamental axiom than that is that, at least for the purpose of this course, that statement that Bhagavad Gita is the authority on which we will be basing all our statements. The more fundamental axiom is that Krishna is God. God is speaking this, or a perfect teacher is speaking this. I showed you that whole line of succession. How do you know that the first guy was right? If he was wrong, then everybody else got it wrong. That is the axiom, that he is not wrong. If you have a doubt about that, then I do not have an answer. Okay, so we will go by that. So I cannot answer questions, but here in this other book, it is written something else is written, and Bhagavad Gita says this. For example, Bhagavad Gita will talk about the concept of the soul. Somebody could say, oh, soul doesn't exist. Now we can give some experimental or some experiential statements, but say, I don't agree, because somewhere else it says it does not exist. I'm like, okay, then you're in the wrong class. Okay, having put that, that's a big one. That's the only axiom for this entire course. Everything else will become connected, will be proved. We will have answers. We can engage in meaningful question answers about everything else. The next thing is to understand Bhagavad Gita with a sense of urgency. Who knows whether you will ever be in this course or this kind of a course again, or you will have the internal inspiration to attend this kind of course again. This knowledge is just way too much important to let go. It's the manual of the most complex machine that you are bound to use every day. You can sell off your Tesla and buy a Ford or a Toyota or a Honda. You can downgrade. You cannot downgrade this machine that you have. So you better learn how to use it. You will be just infinitely more happier. And plus, you don't know how much useful time you have. My mom, for example, she's 87, she has lunch, and then half an hour later, she says, I haven't had my lunch yet. So, when the faculty is, when your mental, your physical faculties are with you, is the right time, not when you are old and dwindling. And everything we do is free of cost. Spiritual knowledge should never be charged for. Okay? But do not take it lightly, just because it is free. Somebody gave it to me free. Lord Krishna gave it free. Everybody, but you also, if you become inspired and expert enough, you should give it for free. But don't take it lightly. It's just way too important for your own life. And therefore, you must attend all classes. I should have made the word all also in red color. Well, there you go. All. Don't just stop at the second chapter. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. I'm done. I got whatever I wanted to get. I'm out of here. And with rapt attention. And that's why in person, sorry for those who are on Zoom, but at least, as much as possible, with rapt attention, make notes, write down, watch the recording again if you have to, read the book, go back and do it as if this 6 months or 5 months or whatever, 22 weeks that you will invest is the most important time that you will invest in your life. You will come out of it having such a good understanding. And of course, it's not done. You won't become a perfect human being after 22 weeks. You will have the perfect, a sort of a sense of the perfect knowledge, good enough to start applying it. And the moment you start applying, you will see so many people who come into spiritual line, I will tell you, are looking for, many people use this, a sign. What they call as a sanket, nishan. If this is true, show me a sign. Can I get a sign? And I can tell you, and these are too private, so I'm not going to share all my, nothing like too private as in I can't share or something, but it's just too silly, but too private. I have so many signs. You practice it sincerely. You just in your heart request, Krishna, give me a sign. I will follow the Bhagavad Gita sincerely for 1 week. One teaching I will take and I will follow it as if my life depends on it. You will get a sign. Of course, you need to tune yourself to that sign as well. You will absolutely, and that's your proof that this stuff is real. It's not some mumbo jumbo to brainwash you. Yes, it is brainwashing. We call it, your brain needs to be washed. It's full of so much contamination. It needs to be washed. What's going on?
He's trying to figure out his path. Should I go?
To the airport? Let's give it some more time. Let him figure it out. And if not, we'll go. So take it as if it applies to you. It's meant for you. You are having the steering of that machine in your hands. It's not meant like, I want my child to understand Bhagavad Gita. What about you? Or, it's meant for someone else. Yes, it is meant for everyone. Bring along others, but don't exclude, don't leave yourself out. Okay. So before we go into chapter 1, are there any questions? I don't see any questions that are not yet. So every class will be 2 hours long. 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific time. No questions? Then yes, Jaya.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Durga here.
Hmm?
Are we going to cover each and every verse in all these 18 chapters?
No. This is, I said, like, we are not even covering every verse in the double XL size. We are covering 70% of those verses. You're welcome to go look at those recordings. We would not have time to cover every verse in Sanskrit. I'll make you go through the verses quickly. You will see. So answer is kind of yes and no. You will see it in a few minutes. But
Sure.
we won't go into detail in every verse. The
Got
time
it. Thank you so much for the confirmation. Thank you. Hare.
Mute yourself back.
Hare Krishna, sir. My name is Ravi. I have a question. Is this course also provided in other languages other than English for parents?
No.
No? Okay.
Inessa, you're muted. You're muted.
I'm sorry. We have several editions of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Is the first one full version is 1972. If you have changes in the text of next edition, or is it almost the same?
It's almost the same. So I have the 1972 edition. This is a common question. This was published sort of in a rush, and the author, Srila Prabhupada, used a dictaphone. Write it himself. He used a dictaphone, and then his disciples would, read or hear from the dictaphone and write down and send it to the press and, publications. And there were some mistakes and things like that that were done. While he was living, a second edition was prepared, which was done more carefully, and, things were done. So there is not going to be a third edition ever, because the author has passed away. So this is the one that we will use. And I have gone through all the differences between the first and the second edition. And all of those are, the meaning does not change. If you can come up with something where you can convince me that the meaning has changed, I will take back my statement. So either one works, but if you really want to follow word by word and, not kind of get stuck by one comma or some grammatical things, then just follow the second edition. Srinivasulu.
Hi, namaste. I have a quick question. I know we are going, each chapter wise. Let's say if I'm having some question which is not relevant to the chapter, is it okay to ask in between?
I would prefer if you waited till that chapter. Looks like you've read the Bhagavad Gita, and that's why you might have a question that's in the future. So it might be better to wait. But if you think it's relevant to that chapter, then by all means, feel free to ask. And if I think that such a question can be postponed till later, I will take the liberty to do so.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
So let's go into the first chapter then. Okay. Can one attend few classes in person? Yes, as many as possible. The most important thing is to attend all classes, either in person or Zoom. And if you are traveling to Portland or something, as long as you are here, try to attend in person, and rest, catch up on Zoom. Not catch up, but attend online. And if you just can't attend because you have a birthday party or whatever else may be there, work or something, catch up on the recording. When will the class recordings be shared? It takes time for me to process and upload. Usually I try to do it within 24 hours, 48 hours about. Suresh, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, namaste, Hari Om. I had a question. So two of the chapters are a bit longer, right? Like the second chapter and the 18th chapter. So you were mentioning that you will cover in every class one chapter. So will those two chapters be covered in one class or more than one?
TBD, it might take 1.5 classes. It might go over 2 classes. That's why I said about 20, 22 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
We'll see. I'm still stitching the t-shirt. The t-shirt is not ready yet, but I can tell you that once it's ready, it will be approximately small or medium size. How small or how medium, we will know after. Ask me this question after 26 weeks, and I will tell you how many weeks chapter 2 took.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Answer in hindsight.
So can I ask a stupid question? Perhaps?
There's no stupid question.
So how was this all chapterized? It was just a dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna. How did this become chapterized?
Vyasadeva chapterized it when he recorded it in the Mahabharata.
Okay.
Yes, and he is the 4th one in that line.
I see.
So Lord Brahma, and then Narada Muni, and then Vyasadeva, and he chapterized it. And there are certain names given to the chapter as well. The knowledge kind of branched off, and Adi Shankaracharya gave the chapter names. So they are all great masters, and we accept the way they have divided and given the names and chapterized and all that. Okay. So Lord Krishna inspires them from within. They get that inspiration through their teachers. In their heart, ultimately, Lord Krishna is the supreme teacher, and he gives them the knowledge that is needed to do these kind of. You can ask that, how did A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, the English translations that he wrote, how did he get it? I mean, what was told to him may not have been in English by his teacher. So that's why it takes a human being to be a student. And when the professor says that goes through a big qualification process, okay, you can now become a teacher. Just like in modern universities, becoming a professor in a good university takes a lot of vetting and, a lot of eligibility and qualification. Once you are qualified, then you are allowed to teach a class. So yes, that's how these masters, these acharyas have done. Yes.
The disciplic succession, is it from a living person to a living person, or could it be like some of them, like the gurus were not around when they?
It could be in the sukshma form as well. The question was, is the disciplic succession living to living to living? May not be. Now, Brahmaji is still living. Okay. So it could be in a sukshma form as well. Okay. Okay, let's go to chapter 1.
He got rebooked on the flight.
Okay, rebooked. Okay. Direct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some devotees were asking me if they can go pick up someone.
Okay, things look good on the flight for my son. Thanks. All right. Chapter 1, observing the armies. So, what's going on? How does the Bhagavad Gita begin? Now, is there anybody who has absolutely no idea of the background context of a very general, very high level idea about the Mahabharata or the background context of the Bhagavad Gita, how it starts? Why the Mahabharata war occurred? You have no idea at all?
Not that much.
But you do have a little, you know who are the Pandavas and the Kauravas? Okay. Anybody else like that? All right. So
लक्ष्य बोलो.
Yeah. Okay. Am I sharing the screen? Okay. So we are going into chapter 1, the scene of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, I'm not going to be able to spend a lot of time on the background. And there are many, many background questions. So Bhagavad Gita is being spoken, it suffices to say, in an absolute crisis situation. So as time is passing by, I can see some, discomfort building and everything. So, we'll stick to the 2-hour schedule. I know 2 hours is a long time to sit comfortable or, still. So try to, as I said, that there was a reason why I said, here on this slide, I said, if any inconveniences occur, please tolerate. Okay. So this is, just want to remind of that request. So it was spoken in an extreme crisis situation. A world war was about to occur between two armies, very huge armies. And one is the good side and one is the bad side. They happen to be cousin brothers on either side of the armies. And the leader of the good side, now there are many background questions, I won't go into too many details. The bad side is comprised of 100 brothers known as the Kauravas. And the good side has 5 brothers known as the Pandavas. And this is all part of the Mahabharata. I am right now reading the Mahabharata cover to cover. It's very, very long. You have no idea, it's horrific. The kind of atrocities that were done by Duryodhana towards the Pandavas. Sometimes even in the United States Penal Code, I have seen capital punishment is given 3 lifetimes. They say 3 lifetimes of punishment. How on earth are you going to enforce a 3 lifetime punishment? How could you do that? So you cannot, but it just goes to speak to the gravity or the ghastliness, the severity of the crime. That if possible, we would kill you 3 times, not once. Okay. So those were the level of crimes, what they did to, there is a group of children here. I don't want to kind of go into gory details, but what they did to Draupadi in the assembly hall was worse than anything that you can imagine. It hasn't even happened on earth. Rape cases happen in the corners, in the alleys or in the buses, all these things. Not in the, what if you say, United States Capitol, in the Senate House, where everybody is watching. The leaders are sitting there, the president is sitting there and he's watching it happen. Hasn't even happened. So this was, and how many times they tried to poison the Pandavas, they tried to kill the Pandavas and all this stuff. I don't want to make this a Mahabharata class. Sometime I have the desire to do that because what I'm reading is just so fantastic and so illuminating. I want to share with others. We'll do that if Lord Krishna wants me to. Okay. So if you have questions about this, we can deal with it in the Q&A time, but there are all these questions and I'll hit straight to the point. And this is how every chapter will be organized. Okay. I will give out right in the get-go the significant points of the chapter. Here is what we must take away from the chapter. Without further ado, these are the significant points in the chapter. There are many more, many more. Like I said, every word has a concept, but these are the main ones. Okay, so we'll go through this and then we'll go through certain portions of the chapter and we will see. But if you understand this one slide, you have understood the significance of chapter 1. So what I was talking about was that this was spoken, this Bhagavad Gita was spoken in a situation of extreme crisis. And the last point, so for all those who might know a little bit more details, just before the Mahabharata war, the Pandavas were in exile, 13 years. Arjuna, the leader who knew that there's going to be a war, there was an agreement before that if you return the half of the kingdom, you will be happy. But he knew this Duryodhan guy is just so nasty, he will not. And the war is impending. And he prepared for 13 years for the war. He went and collected all the weapons, the nuclear weapons from the various devatas and all the way up to Lord Shiva and Indra and so many other, he traveled to Swarga, got weapons from, he was preparing every day of those 13 years. But the point is that in that last moment, after you will see, after the conch shells, the shank had been blown, which is the official starting of the war, he gets goosebumps. He says, I don't want to fight. Right up till the last minute, what one would call as the moment of truth. So the point is, material preparation is good. He did a lot of tremendous material preparation at a material level, collecting the weapons and doing all the things, preparing for the war, making alliances with various, political alliances and all those things to have an army, to have the weapons, to have all this. That's good, absolutely. But it's not enough. Especially in impossible life circumstances. Now, fortunately, we will, I hope, at least I don't foresee myself, and hopefully none of you also will be in that kind of situation. Any army general here? Right? And these days, army generals, sit in the office and press buttons. So in that time, they would be at the charging the army. So, but we also have our impossible situations in our life. Either we are put into where we have impossible choices to do this or that. That is one kind of conflict that one may be faced with. A deep conflict, what to do. Many people have, okay, should I just stay in the US or should I go back to India to take care of my parents? Give up everything, leave my job. It's an impossible, it's a choice. It wasn't forced. You knew you have parents. I'm just giving a very common standard example. Or, maybe the wife is abusive or husband is abusive. Should I just tolerate, continue, or should I leave? Whatever may be, everybody has their situations in life. So choices, and some could be forced situations. Suddenly, one blood test and your counts are off the charts and you're like, oh my God. And the doctor gives you the bad news. You have 3 months to live. We think we have everything planned out. We have great insurance. We have great, retirement, 401k, everything is going great. And then suddenly we are, hit by a brick. So material preparation is good, but it's not enough. What really matters, what really helps or supports that in that situation is the spiritual knowledge, which is what Arjuna gets So the difference between material and spiritual. So he doesn't get that spiritual knowledge in chapter 1. He'll get it through the rest of the Bhagavad Gita. So that's why I have not put the solution in here, that it is spiritual, but he darn well realized that all my material preparation, he's like, I'm ready to walk out of the war. Well, then why did you go on this, 13 years you spent preparing for what? If you are unwilling to take the final exam. There are other important points. So that is the most important point, that we all prepare, we all have wonderful plans. We have the best jobs, the best insurance, the best 401k, the best portfolio, good health. Everything's going great. But that's all at a material level. It could fall short. It could. Not it will, but it could. Okay. The next point, now I will go from the top to the bottom. The root cause of all the suffering is mam and aham. So open your Bhagavad Gita and go to verse number 1. 1.1. Chapter 1, verse 1. So Dhritarashtra. So the chapter, the Bhagavad Gita starts with Dhritarashtra Uvacha. And in the third line, you will see so Dhritarashtra is inquiring, he's blind. And he is inquiring from his assistant Sanjaya what's going on in the battle. And Sanjaya has been given divine vision to see the battlefield. He has always been his sort of eyes and ears. Ears he had, so just eyes. Vyasadeva, in fact, offered eyes to Dhritarashtra, saying, I'll give you eyes. He said, you know what? Even if you give me eyes, I have never seen who is Duryodhana, who is Yudhishthira. If you put these two men in front of me, I won't know who is my son and who is, my stepson. So just give the divine vision to my assistant. I'm used to hearing from him. I will hear from him. So Sanjaya is narrating the whole battlefield scene. So Dhritarashtra is asking Sanjaya, Mama kaha Pandavaschaiva. So if you know that the Pandu, the father of the Pandavas, had died, and Dhritarashtra is the uncle of the Pandavas, and in that situation, they are as good as his sons. They are under his care. But he always, yes, blood-wise or whatever, they are his stepsons theoretically, but they should have been treated like his own children. But he never treated them like his own children. Never. Always treated them, gave them a what is called a stepmotherly or stepfatherly treatment. Always. That is the fundamental cause of our suffering, the mam. You can see the word mama kaha Pandavaschaiva. It says, what did my sons, after assembling on the battlefield, my sons and the Pandu's sons? You can see the difference there. My versus us versus they. That is the fundamental cause of all suffering. Mine versus them. Mam and aham. These two words will come a lot in the Bhagavad Gita. Mam, everything is about mam and aham, me and mine. So our strong attachments, no situation is impossible. We qualify situations as impossible because we have certain strong attachments. If we give up our attachments, then the situation becomes from impossible to negligible. Nothing. I'm so attached to living here. Okay, I should go back to my place. That attachment is there. I want to. Oh, then the situation becomes impossible. Impossible or near impossible. So as we will go through, or I'm going to probably request you to go through chapter 1 very quickly, or certain parts of chapter 1. Find yourself in both Duryodhan's shoes, where all we are being unjust, unfair, hypocritical, saying something, thinking something else, pretense, all these things. So that is one. And seeing ourselves in Arjun's shoes. What was Arjun's conflict? Arjun's conflict was, he was way too compassionate and forgiving. He was like, okay, these guys have wronged us. They tried to kill us so many times. They almost ended up raping Draupadi had Lord Krishna not intervened. Right in the courthouse. Let's forgive them. And walk out. So he was attached to his goodness versus justice. There's been this, I don't know, now this is not a statement on the Idaho killings, but I'm sure you must have been hearing in the news about these 4 girls murdered in their sleep by some guy. Now, assuming, I don't know the details are emerging, or let's take the Delhi rape case or whatever, those 4 guys. Do you think it's, which one would you side with, justice or forgiveness? Let's forgive them. Okay, we are very kind. Let's forgive them. Tell me.
Justice.
Anybody who thinks forgiveness is the answer? It doesn't forgive. So we will talk about Kshama. The topic of Kshama is a big topic. We will hint upon it in one of the future classes. But this is not a candidate for Kshama. There is justice, there is Kshama. Yes. There is Kshama. It's not zero, but justice overrides it.
I had a quick question. I was under the impression it was not so much his willingness to forgive, but it was his attachment with Bhishma Pitahmaha.
We'll come to that. There are 4 reasons. So this is one of the reasons. I didn't say this is the only reason. This was one of the 4 big reasons. So you are right. So the question was, this is not the only reason why he wanted to leave the battle. Okay. The third thing, this is another extremely important point. Bhagavad Gita, we say, Bhagavad Gita classes, Bhagavad Gita, do this, be a You'll get a lot of instructions. There are 700 verses. You'll get a mouthful. Okay. So how do I know this is true? It's just a book. Somebody might have written it. Why should I follow? You're telling me Krishna is God. If God were to come in front of me, then I would believe. Huh? How many of you would have that feeling? No? Come on, don't be honest. If God were to come and say that, yes, Bhagavad Gita is true, if he would put his hand and say, guys, I really spoke this book, trust, go by it, live your life by it, then I would live my life by it. Otherwise, who knows who wrote this? How many of you have that thought? Now, many of you do, but you're not raising. So anyway, that point is also defeated in the first chapter itself. Lord Krishna was present in front of everyone, but a very few only realized he is God. He even went to Duryodhan's assembly and told him, I am God. He did not say it's for you to figure out who I am. He showed his universal form there. He told them, dudes, if you do not, you will all be destroyed. There could not be a more direct communication. So there will always be people, always be people. So this argument that if God were to come, then I would definitely listen to his word. Then you would question, are you God? Or are you some, just some magic show or some illusion, some vision? Come on, buzz off. I don't trust you or God. Okay? That conviction comes through your heart. How do you know? Like I said, practice it. You will see a sign, I guarantee you, but you have to practice it sincerely. God is willing to be put to the test, but sincerely, you also have to do your part. And finally, you can't be a jerk and then say, I want to read Bhagavad Gita. You have to develop good qualities, just good qualities. I don't want to get into a debate of what is good and bad, all theoretical, intellectual gymnastics. You know what is a good person. Anybody has any doubts or confusion about what a good person is?
No.
There better not be. It's very simple. Very simple. Just be a good person. In the Bible, a very simple definition is given. Don't do to others what they would not want, what you would not want them to do to you. That is a starting point, a very, fundamental definition of being a good person. What is so hard to get? We don't do that. That's called hypocrisy. So Arjuna was a perfect candidate for receiving the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita because he was already at that level of being a very good. He was willing to completely forgive such massive aggressors. So these are some of the points to be taken away from chapter 1. Okay. So this is a sort of a summary of the breakup of the chapter. It starts with the question of Dhritarashtra. What's happening on the field? Now, Sanjaya, a very interesting thing you will see, Sanjaya, when he's describing to Dhritarashtra, he is speaking for Duryodhan said this and so forth. You will see, again, we might not have time to read through the verses of the chapter 1, but you will see that when Duryodhan is going and he tells, Duryodhan is saying so and so, that these are my opponents. And he names Bhima, Arjuna, Yudhishthir, he names all the people on the opponent side. Who is naming here? Duryodhan is naming. There is one person he misses to name. Who is that? If you read, you will see he misses to name Krishna. Yeah. Which means now Bhagavad Gita, therefore you have to read it when you read a text. You know what? And even this is true in your corporate things and all also. More important than what is written is what is missing. Recently, there was an org announcement. Some senior executive vice president sent an org announcement. These are the changes. This vice president gets this role. This vice president gets this role. This one. So everything's normal. One person pointed to me, everybody's name is there, but this one vice president, his name is not even there in the list. 1 month later, his name was removed from the directory itself. So that org announcement was basically saying that other person was fired, though it was nowhere written. Are you following? What is not written sometimes is more important than what is written. So you have to see with those eyes. So when Duryodhan is explaining the opposite army, he fails to mention Krishna, which shows that he considers Krishna to be an unimportant actor. Because he knows, again, we didn't go into the lot of the background. Krishna said, I won't even fight. Says this guy is just, he's a buffoon. He's a non-entity. But when Sanjaya is describing his version of Pandava's army, the first name he takes is Krishna. Sanjaya perfectly knows who is Krishna. He is the only hope, the last guide of Dhritarashtra. But he's only a servant. Dhritarashtra is the boss. He constantly overrides, and Sanjaya's duty is not to provide advice. So he tries to provide it in very, very subtle ways, like mentioning Krishna's name first. But our, I won't say dear or not so dear Dhritarashtra is not only physically blind, he is mentally blind. He doesn't get it. So then there is a description of Pandava's army. And then Arjuna requests Krishna to take the chariot in the middle of the two armies. And there he sees his attachments. So Duryodhan's attachment is to the kingdom, and to his not more than the kingdom, it's the power, and not only the power, there's something more important. Establishing his superiority over his cousins, because throughout his life, his cousins were better than him. The Pandavas were better than Kauravas in all respects. And he was like, I just want to get rid of these guys. He just couldn't stand the sight of these guys. So that is Duryodhan's attachment, which is a wrong kind of attachment. To have this enviousness, this extreme hatred for his brothers. On the other hand, Arjuna's attachments also are there, but the good attachments, but still attachments. Like his grandfather, the biggest attachment is Bhishma. He was more attached to Bhishma than to Yudhishthir and Bhima. Bhishma was, and there's a different reason why Bhishma ended up on the other side. You know, that was one of our questions, if you see. Why did Bhishma and Drona are on? They are the right people. All when the wrong things were happening, there were three people who were constantly advising Dhritarashtra. But they were by his side with the hope that there'll be some sense. If we also go away, he'll go completely off track. Three people. Who are they? Bhishma, Drona, and who's the third one? Vidura. Karna. There were four main villains. The four big perpetrators. Who are they? Duryodhan,
Shakuni,
Dushasana,
Karuna.
Karna is not even in the middle. He's very, very much a villain. And I can say this because I am reading the direct Mahabharata. Verse by verse translations. You have no idea what Karna does. He, in part, instigates the thought of disrobing Draupadi. So anyway, so why are they on this side? That's a longer story. But that is his big attachment. Biggest attachment is Bhishma, and then Drona. And for Drona, his son is Ashwathama, who's another scrupulous guy. But it is written in Mahabharata that for Dronacharya, Arjun was way more dear to him than his own son Ashwathama. He loved Arjuna and Arjun loved Drona. Those were, how can you kill them? It was hard for them to tolerate their death, let alone be the cause of their death. So then the next section talks about Arjuna's doubts or his lamentations, and there are four reasons. One of them is compassion, which encompasses forgiveness. I've just picked keywords. So this is one of the four reasons. The other reason is, okay, we'll win the war, he says. And Arjuna was confident we will win. Why was he confident? Because of his own prowess? No. Krishna is on his side. What else?
Because Krishna was on his side.
Absolutely. There is, you don't need anything more. If Krishna is on your side, there is 100% guarantee of all success.
Uh,
So let me just finish this, then we'll take a few questions. The second was, even if we win, we will win. What's the point of that enjoyment, which is, obtained by killing our near and dear ones, or at the cost of, generally at such a cost of human life? Let them be kings. We'll just walk away. We have spent 13 years in the forest. We'll spend the rest of the life in the forest. We'll spare the world a war. Then he says destruction of family will take place. It's our own family. It's not just lives, or it's destruction of family, and not just family, of all families, because the men fight the war. The women, these days, some women fight. The women's are all at home. And he knows that in this world war, everyone is going to die. So all families are going to be destroyed. Which family would want which wife would want the husband to be dead, or which child would want to be an orphan, right? Destruction of family. And then sinful reactions. Is it really sin? Justice you are delivering, but he was in this thing about sinful reactions. It's like the judge. Let's say the judge orders whatever. Some judge must have ordered those 4 people, the Delhi rape case. Some judge must have signed the papers. These 4 guys should be hanged. Correct? Now, what if the judge says, oh, I will get sin, so I'm not going to sign. I'm not going to be the judge. That doesn't work. Justice has to be delivered. So he was on this wrong trip, that a judge, he's also ordering killing. When the judge says, hang these guys, isn't he sanctioning killing? Oh my God, you're sanctioning killing. Killing is, okay. Now there's a big debate about capital punishment versus, all that. We won't go into that. So there are all these saintly qualities of Arjuna. We'll not go into that. We talked about forgiveness, soft-heartedness, and so on, which makes him qualified, a perfect student to understand Gita. And that is the end of our chapter 1. So what I would request you to do, and we will do this since we covered the orientation and the chapter together, I probably should have, but there wasn't enough for chapter 1 to cover the whole 2 hours either. So I wouldn't have split it into 2 weeks or 2 sessions. But please go back and just read the translations of the entire chapter. This video will be posted on YouTube. And this is the most important slide of chapter 1. These are the 5 most key takeaways from the chapter. People think, oh, real Bhagavad Gita starts in chapter 2, when Lord Krishna starts speaking. The first chapter lays the problem statement. Don't you tell your children, my kids, when they did math, the first thing is read the problem carefully. Then you can have the solution. The solution will make sense. Otherwise, you don't even know what is it a solution to. So chapter 1 is stating the problem statement. The solutions will come in chapter 2 onwards. So questions now.
Can you see the next slide in which you have mentioned Arjun's main reasons for...
You can see it on the YouTube. I'll put it up here briefly, but I want to keep that slide up. This is all getting recorded.
Can you please share this?
I'll be happy to share. They're all on YouTube. You can just fast forward, go back and all. I constantly keep changing the slides. I can share a PDF. How to share WhatsApp, email, that's a big other discussion, but everything is, you can see it on the recording.
And in the recording, we'll have chapters where one person is helping to put the timestamps. So you can jump to various sections.
So what, I know we are extending or going a little bit beyond. Are there any questions? I'm trying to see on the You can raise your hands even if you've put it in the chat, at least so that I know that you have a question.
Should I read all the chats? It's too many.
No. So I'm just, while you're asking questions, Payal, you can ask a question, and I'm reading parallelly.
I had a question about.
I think you're joined from 2 devices. You need to go to a different room or something. So there was one question, but the judge doesn't have any connection with the victims. So yes, that is one of the reasons, justice. The other reason, there are 4 reasons. So that's not the only reason. This is a much more complex situation. And by the way, Arjuna is not the judge. He is the executor. The judge is Krishna. He is the hangman. We will discover this in chapter 11. Arjuna has presented all his points. Krishna says, you know what? I am the judge. You want to be the hangman? He will say, Nimitta matra bhava. You be the instrument. I'm not asking you to judge. I am the judge. He says, I am the God. I am the Lord. I have judged that these people should die. If you're not ready to do it, I'll find someone else to do it. Okay, so Arjuna is strictly not the judge. Krishna is the judge. Okay.
So I had the question that when you talk about Arjuna maybe not wanting to fight and forgive them, what if, how does forgiveness combine with justice, where forgiveness is not so much for the other person, but for yourself, because you do not want to carry the burden?
You said it. So forgiveness is majorly or largely for your own progress so that you don't remain stuck. And we will give a definition later, but a brief definition, we will give it from a spiritual standpoint. The spiritual definition of forgiveness is, the purpose of forgiveness is that you continue to make progress in your spiritual life and you let them continue to make progress in their spiritual life. Okay? And we are so attached to this body. This body is so important to us that killing evokes all kinds of emotions. That is why in the 2nd chapter, Lord Krishna very quickly goes into the concept of reincarnation. That this body is temporary. It's not the end. The end of the body is not the end of life. The soul continues to live. And death, in fact, or this capital punishment is a blessing for the criminal, because then he pays the price and moves on in his next life to get a second chance to kind of, whatever, like if you did a petty crime, you're put in jail for 6 months, then you're free. Okay, you get a second chance to live your life again. You've paid the price. So in this case, you pay the price with your life. It is given in the Shastras that every lifetime that goes by without paying the price, it doubles. It's like a compound interest. So better to give the price right now.
But is it not an attachment to justice then? Why is justice more important than other things?
Because it was delivered by Krishna, right? He was the judge. So it was Arjuna.
Justice, it is not an attachment to justice, because justice is how Lord Krishna manages. This question is a deeper question. We will come to it in the future chapters. What is the ultimate goal of human life? The goal of human life is not just to live legally. The goal of human life is something higher. And living legally, and when I say legally, the Sanskrit word is by dharma. You must have heard of this 4 purusharthas: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. By living dharmically, you get artha. Artha means you get some result. And then kama means you get to enjoy those results. It's like you work hard legally, you get paid. That's your artha. And then you go for a vacation in Disneyland or wherever, Hawaii. That's your karma. And then you come back and you begin to work again, and this cycle goes. Hey, but there's a fourth item there. So to work dharmically, you can keep saying that it is, I'm attached to this side. Why am I attached? But there is a fourth item, which is moksha. And slowly this cycle, we will cover, we are going way ahead of ourselves. So for that, to understand why attached justice is not something that you feel that, oh, I'm attached to justice, then you would say I'm attached to injustice. There is a higher purpose which we will uncover or unfold or discover in the future chapters. Anything else?
Thank you.
I'm trying to read on the chat what I have received in the meantime. But if you have questions, yes, Pratyush.
Sir, I have a logical question. You said that we can send you questions beforehand that you can answer. How would we be able to do that?
gitapdx.com/contact, or you go to gitapdx.com and use the contact us page.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't understand some of these other questions. Even with war, there comes with attachments if you have personal connection versus not. Please put your questions a little bit more. I'm under pressure. First of all, time. We are 10 minutes over. I'm trying to read. There's so many people looking at me. So all that stuff is there. So if the question is simply stated, it will be very helpful for me.
Right, I'll just take the questions from the room.
Yeah, are there any people? If you need to raise your hand, I would definitely prioritize room questions as well. Raise your hands. So then another question is, on Mahabharata, we have so many soldiers who died from both sides. These soldiers, especially the Kaurava side ones, they were just following their dharma. This is another big point, following orders. You know what? 90% of the people who were tried in the Nuremberg trials, have you heard of the Nuremberg trials? The trials that occurred after the Second World War and war crimes. Every single person was following orders, isn't it? Okay. So what's the answer? Only the top guy should be prosecuted, Hitler, and by the way, he committed suicide. So basically everybody else should be let go free, isn't it? Is that how it works? The reason which we will understand from the Bhagavad Gita, yes, there are orders, yes, but there is a higher principle. And we see that even in our normal situation, the answer to those, I was following orders. There is something called international law. And there is statutes, there are statutes for war crimes. And yes, at that time, the soldier has to make a choice, whether I follow these wrong orders and shoot this innocent man point blank, or I refuse to do that and get shot by my boss. Because he will shoot me if I say that I can't do this, you're telling me to do something wrong. That's a hard choice. Mahatma Gandhi was asked this, and his response was, I may be able to save my body, but how will I save my soul? So yes, if you are faced in that impossible situation, you have to make a choice between saving your body or saving your soul. Or in other words, saving your body or saving your conscience. Too bad you're in that situation. And why you got into that situation, another big thing, why is it happening to me? I could have been sitting at home. Why am I in this war front, being given this impossible choice? We talked about it. Today's was problem statement. Impossible choices. Why me? Why do bad things happen to good people? Very frequently asked, very common question. Anything else? We will answer that. Yes.
Knowingly tolerating that what is unjust and still trying to debate where, whatever Kauravas did was like injustice to you and on a very massive level, and still you're fighting yourself to, somewhere finding a reason.
Exactly. You are defining Mr. Dhritarashtra. He was such a conflicted personality, always trying to find some justification, some loose thread to hang on to justify, how can I let my son just continue to, not say no to my son? The answer is just very strong attachment. Very strong attachment. It's our attachments which causes us to become blind. Anything else? Okay. So we will stop here. Sorry for going 15 minutes over. Sometimes we might go like few minutes over, but not as much as 15. That will be my goal. I'm trying this out again, this whole fast-paced format. And I'm committed. I was committed to finishing up till chapter 1 today at the cost of 15 extra minutes. Thank you for tolerating me. Consider this as an inconvenience and forgive me. And we will see you all next week. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.